Hi, and welcome to the Skin Karma Pod. I'm Carmine, the creator and voice of the Skin Karma blog. With more than 3 decades in beauty as a brand builder, copywriter, and skincare junkie, I'm putting my product wisdom and expertise to work demystifying skincare. When we think about innovation in skincare, we tend to focus on whatever ingredient or technology is dominating headlines at the moment. Exosomes, PDRN, regenerative aesthetics, or the latest longevity buzzword. But every so often, it's worth asking a different question. Which brands were talking about these ideas before the rest of the industry caught on? Long before skin barrier repair became a marketing slogan, and certainly before the microbiome entered the beauty lexicon, Beekman 1802 was building an entire philosophy around supporting the skin rather than constantly trying to correct it. This week, I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Brent Ridge, physician, co-founder of Beekman 1802, former vice president of healthy living at Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia, and one of the beauty industry's kindest and most thoughtful voices. Together, we'll explore why consumers are finally embracing barrier health, whether the microbiome is poised to become skincare's next major frontier, and what happens when medicine, wellness, and beauty begin borrowing ideas from one another. So let's do this. Let's welcome Dr. Brent Ridge to the pod. Dr. Brent, welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here. I love listening to your conversations. It's like being a fly on the wall between two very interesting people. So um,
Aw,
I'm glad to be one of those interesting people now.
you certainly are. I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you. You have such a, my God, a broad range of experiences, both in your career and outside your career. You're one of probably the most fascinating people I think in beauty. Um,
Mm.
you trained and practiced as a physician. You helped launch Martha Stewart Center for Living, became vice president of healthy living at Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia, and with your husband and partner in crime, Josh, competed and won the Amazing Race. And of course, co founded one of the most recognizable skincare brands in the beauty world today, Beekman 1802. Um, like bookending all of that, when you look back, what would you say were the moments that convinced you that your impact on people's health might ultimately come through building a skincare brand rather than practicing medicine?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think in when I was seeing patients, I was at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, and when I was seeing patients, it was always the most challenging part, and I think any physician would tell you this. The most challenging part is getting people to take their health seriously and to
Mm,
make the little changes, the consistent changes that add up over time, like preventative measures. Like those are by far the most important contributors to health.
yeah.
Um, and it's always very challenging to work on a one. Even when you were successful and got someone to make the right changes in their life, it still felt very finite. And so when you have the opportunity to work in an industry like quote unquote the beauty industry, you are getting to impact how people feel about their health, how they take ownership of their health, and I think that's very rewarding. So I think overall, I get to impact many more people than I would have had I just stayed either practicing medicine or even working in media as I was doing with Martha Stewart. I just get to touch a lot more people's lives, and I hope for the better.
Yeah. I've never heard it framed that way, but you're right. Like, when you have a patient in front of you and you're treating them for something and then they kind of, it's all in their hands and
Hmm.
your work with them is finite. You're not with them perhaps ever again. And it
Right.
reminds me, I just moved to LA and it has been a bit disconcerting to disconnect from my neurologist,
Mm.
who's I look at her as having saved my life because I suffer from chronic migraine. I hate using the word suffer, but it is what it
Hmm.
is.
Hmm.
And she really helped me regain control of my life and get the migraines somewhat under control. And now I'm here and I'm establishing healthcare here, and I kind of miss her. And
Well,
yeah.
does she not offer any type of telehealth? I mean, maybe that's the
Well,
root.
I mean, I'm out of like that. She's at Mount Sinai, and I'm
Mm,
at Kaiser now.
mm,
So
mm-hmm.
I just, I need to
Yeah,
DM her and just thank her. And we've had those conversations, and I completely get that. Like, look, it struck a chord with me when you said that. Like, we don't need to go on a whole like healthcare tangent, but yeah, like I completely resonate with that. So
yeah.
thank you.
Well, hopefully your new doctor will be in communication with her and continue the work that has been done well. But
Yeah.
it's the exact same thing when you find a good skincare product or something that
Mm-hmm.
works for you and you can be consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
You like it enough that you can be consistent with it. That it doesn't matter how much it costs, right? Because
Yeah.
it's worth it if it enables you to have a sustainable approach to your health.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. It sounds like sustainability and in this frame and consistency are a through line in
Yeah.
both. We're
Hmm.
all tantalized by the next exciting technology, and the reality is that's not what your skin needs. Your
Right.
skin needs consistent care.
Right.
Yeah. And I have to say before we go on, like I'm obsessed with this, the
I can't.
Bloom
I
cream.
don't have you on camera, Carmine. I
Oh,
can't. No.
it's the Bloom cream.
Okay. Oh, the Bloom Cream. That was our original moisturizer.
Oh,
Still one of our hero products.
yeah.
Um, and and it's so interesting. People always think that it's called the Bloom Cream because when you press down, it's in an airless pump, and so when you
Yeah.
press down on the actuator, it kind of comes out in a bloom shape.
Yeah.
Um, but that's actually not the reason. The reason it's called the Bloom Cream is because of the work that we have been doing in understanding the healthy skin microbiome.
Mm.
And anytime you optimize the nutrient status in a microbial environment, you can cause a bloom of that microbial environment. And that's why it's called the Bloom Cream, because we are hoping that we're optimizing the nourishment of the microbiome of the skin.
My God, you can like I completely get that. Like I feel that when I put this on at night, like I don't even know how to describe. Like it just feels so pampering.
Oh my gosh,
And
Carmine, you probably can't see, but I am actually blushing. That just gave me such chills, and I'm not being hyperbolic. Like I love when something that we have worked on
yeah.
gets that type of reaction. It's so gratifying. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but coming from someone who runs across hundreds of products,
Yes.
I'm just blown away by this moisturizer, and it reminds me, I've talked about this on the podcast before. I hosted Angela Kalia
Hmm.
on the podcast, and I think it was when I asked her what her regimen was, or we just had a really all-encompassing conversation about the skin and skincare and how skincare interacts with the skin. And we talked about, it was about washing her face in the morning. She said the first thing she does when she gets up in the morning is to apply her growth factor serum.
Hmm.
And I said, the first thing you do in the morning is not wash your face? And she goes, "Oh no, I don't. No, I don't wash." And she's an esthetician, like a renowned esthetician, and she
Hmm.
doesn't wash her face in the morning. And I was like, "Why? I don't know. Like what? Like I don't know if I could do that." And she said, "If you're applying something at night that you need to wash off in the morning, you shouldn't be using that product."
Oh,
And
I don't disagree with that. I mean,
yeah,
I do think that people overwash.
yes, yes,
And I don't know if I could go without completely washing my face ever, but if you're wearing makeup or if you put on sunscreen or you've exposed yourself to certain environmental pollutants,
definitely
then
wash your
it's good to
face.
wash off. But
Yeah,
even to this day, even though now we're doing a lot of work in microbiome and fermentation and exosomes and things like that, I still say that the foundation of healthy skin is how you cleanse the skin.
mm,
Because if you are altering your pH when you're cleansing, if you're overstripping, if you're over-exfoliating, whatever you're doing, you're just going to start a cascade of inflammation that you are going to be constantly battling against. So if you're someone who's like on a tight budget and you're just trying to figure out what is the best thing that I can do, it would be to really look at investing in a good cleanser. And it doesn't have to be expensive, but just really
Oh
pay attention
yeah.
to how you're cleansing your skin.
Oh yeah. But let me close that loop. When I challenged her, she said, "All I do is rinse my face with lukewarm water."
Mm-hmm.
And so I've taken that as my test. So I know if I'm applying something at night and it completely absorbs into my skin and I don't feel anything on my skin in the morning, that's the case with Bloom Cream.
Oh, I
There's
love
no
that.
Bloom Cream left on my face because my
Yep.
face has sucked it all up, which
That's right.
means that
It's
my
just
face loved it, right?
right.
Yeah.
It provided the barrier what it needed, and
Mm-hmm.
also provided the microbiome what it needed, and it was
Yeah.
consumed. It was
Yeah.
consumed. Yeah.
Everybody ate. Look, every founder has a moment when an idea transforms into a mission. Was there a moment when you were convinced that Beekman wasn't going to be just another beauty brand in a vast ocean of beauty brands?
Well, what's interesting about Beekman, and I don't know if
Hmm.
people know our entire story, and I won't get into it because it's in lots of places on the internet, but we're 20 years old now.
Yeah.
And so we really came about before, really even before Facebook and Instagram. Can you believe that? And when we first started the company, we were a lifestyle company.
Oh.
We were, we always had kind of skincare, natural beauty as kind of one vertical, but we also did things like, in gardening and, food and recipe development and things like that. And so we always had this kind of very holistic approach to health and well-being.
Hmm.
And for several years, we published a magazine with Meredith Publications called the Beekman Almanac. And the tagline of that publication was "Cultivate a Better Life." And that's really what we, even to this day, still what we're hoping people do is that, we're helping them have a better life. But we started out as this kind of more kind of holistic lifestyle brand. And it was just, people's response to the goat milk skincare products, and then our
Hmm.
further research into investigating why people were having this response to the products that kind of turned us into this brand that is so focused on skin health. And I will say we never called ourselves a beauty brand or a beauty company. We have
Hmm.
always referred ourselves as a skin health company,
Mm.
um, because we think it's so weird, like in the beauty, to have a whole industry based around something that is inherently about judging something else, right? Like,
Yeah.
who's to say what is beauty? Like, so we always consider ourselves a skin health company rather than a beauty company, but
I love that.
overall a lifestyle company. And if you look at where the industry is now,
Yeah.
um, I think the very best brands that operate in our category are lifestyle brands. Like the merger of beauty and wellness
Yeah.
has really just made every successful brand a lifestyle brand.
Hmm. When if I think back 10 years to where I was in my own career, I was several years into, independence, having run screaming from the building at L'Oreal, um, where I was in house for many years. Um, and I remember distinctly writing packaging copy. I was working on a brand. I don't need to name them, but I was writing packaging copy, and I had used the phrase skin barrier in the
Mm,
copy, you
mm-hmm,
know, because this product was, helping to rebalance or replenish the skin barrier.
mm-hmm,
And I thought I was being really genius, because I was infusing science and, the science of the skin, and that's what this brand was founded on. And do you know, marketing pushed back on that and told me that they would rather I remove the phrase skin barrier because it would go
mm.
over everybody's heads. That was 10
Mm,
years ago. So I'm with you on that. Like the market's come a long way,
yeah, definitely, definitely.
and thankfully. But why do you think consumers are now embracing the idea of healthier skin? Because we didn't really talk about that, years ago.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I can only speak in reference to our own, 20-year history and what I've
Hmm.
seen. I think the big shift really happened during COVID.
Mm,
And I think that just in general, because what was going on with COVID, people were more receptive to learning about science, right? Because science, they were being confronted with science every single day. So that made it less scary to them, and it just seemed part of normal life. And so I think people just their interest in how things worked maybe went up a little bit more than what it would have been at baseline
hmm.
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Um, and certainly with things like the barrier, because we were washing our skin, so washing our hands and sanitizing our hands and things like that. So people really started to understand what the barrier was and how it could be damaged. And then I also think that um, you know part of COVID, and then social media as part of COVID, and what was happening on social media, and people you know um, looking at themselves all the time, being exposed to marketing on social media. They were just trying a lot of products, because they were bored. They had extra cash in their pocket. And so they were just buying everything that they were exposed to and trying them. And people saw a lot of sensitization to the skin because they were using so many different products.
Yeah.
Not necessarily products that were always too strong or formulated too strong with, the acids are too strong or exfoliation was too strong or not. It's just the quantity of different products that they were using.
Yeah.
And so I think that sensitization and the problems that come from sensitizing the skin in terms of inflammation, I think that made also people more aware of the concept of the barrier.
Yeah. It's always fascinating to me when I look at marketing studies that say, they have these crazy percentages that, like 30%, 40% of consumers think that their skin is sensitive. And it's
Yeah,
like, you've sensitized your skin. Your skin
you
isn't
have, right.
sensitive. You sensitized your skin. Just
Correct.
like pull
Correct.
back a bit. Like, don't use any acids. Stop using a physical exfoliant for crying out loud. And, slow down on the retinoids, maybe give your skin a break, and you find how quickly your skin bounces back. And is that
It,
bounce back effect really about the microbiome? Is that what it comes down to?
it's I wouldn't say it's 100% that, but the microbiome plays a huge part of that. And that's one of the things that has always fascinated me about the microbiome is how that really is what makes your skin so resilient.
Hmm.
And I think that's maybe one of the reasons that my approach to skincare has always been unique because, my background was in aging and gerosciences. And so when I was working on, the wards at Mount Sinai, we spent a lot of time working on chronic wounds and chronic
Mm.
wound healing.
Hmm.
And so if you think about what goes into chronic wound healing, you're doing lots of debridement, which is like the most extreme sort of exfoliation. You're acutely aware of maintaining moisture so that you can have
Uh,
new skin cells develop and proliferate. And you're also keenly aware about microorganisms, good and bad, and how they
mm,
are helping that wound heal. And so I've always been fascinated by kind of how those things all work together. And, when we're talking about the microbiome, if you just think about what you remember from your high school biology class when you talked about microorganisms and how quickly they evolve and multiply and change. That's happening on the surface of your skin in real time, right?
yeah.
So if you're on vacation and you're exposed to a different intensity of sunlight or a more dry environment or a more humid environment or whatever, your skin cells aren't adapting. They don't adapt in that way. but that microbiome adapts in that way in real time because they are sensing the environment and evolving to adapt and survive in the environment that you're exposing your skin to. And that sort of resilience is really what makes for healthy skin.
Yeah. And I guess what kind of skincare regimen do you think supports a microbiome and conversely doesn't support a microbiome or damages the microbiome?
Well, I think the science is still, in its beginning stages.
Hmm.
I think the best that we can say right now is that you can definitely find products that are less disturbing to the microbiome.
Hmm.
And I think that there is growing science in specific components of the microbiome that seem to have a um, greater importance in maintaining healthier skin or maintaining balance. Because the microbiome, it's not just about the organisms; it's about the products that the organisms are producing. The postbiotics and things that
Yep.
they're producing, and how those organisms interact with one another.
Right.
And I think that there's just a lot more to learn. I think what interested us about the microbiome and goat milk specifically was that probably one of the best studied organisms on the surface of the skin, part of the microbiome, and there are thousands and thousands of different, microbes on the surface of the skin that have evolved um, with humans to keep our skin healthy. One of the most studied is, the lactobacillus,
Right.
and it's been shown to play a part in psoriasis and a host of other inflammatory skin conditions. And what was interesting to me is that when you go to the grocery store and you're buying yogurt, right?
Hmm.
Because you want to make sure that your gut microbiome is healthy, right? If you look on the back of any great yogurt, it's going to say X, a million live cultures or whatever number they use. And almost always those live cultures are lactobacillus.
Hmm.
And the reason that those live cultures can survive in the yogurt while it's sitting on your grocery store refrigerator shelf is because those bacteria feed off of the oligosaccharides, the sugars that are inherent in the milk.
Mm.
And so I said, oh, well, there might be a mechanism where the oligosaccharides in goat milk can nourish and boost the skin's own lactobacillus.
Oh.
So that then that lactobacillus can then help control inflammatory processes on the surface of the skin. And so that's how we think about what the goat milk oligosaccharides are doing. And what's particularly interesting about goat milk oligosaccharides, even um, separating them out from any other type of milk, cow milk oligosaccharides, whatever, is that goat milk oligosaccharides are more bioidentical to human milk oligosaccharides than any other type of milk.
Oh.
And that's why if an infant can't tolerate breast milk for whatever reason, it's not latching or whatnot, the doctor will almost always say, if you can find goat milk, give the baby goat milk because it is so similar to human milk. And so, our thesis is that because of that similarity, the skin doesn't mount an inflammatory response to this being added to the surface of the skin.
Hmm.
And you're also giving those oligosaccharides to the lactobacillus and helping boost what lactobacillus naturally does really well, which is not only boost keratinocyte production and help wound heal, but also help reduce inflammation.
Right. Through all of that, I was thinking about the probiotics, the
Mhm.
lactobacillus in my own morning yogurt, and then I
Yeah.
realized that I eat non-dairy yogurt.
Well, but it's whatever. I don't know what type of yogurt you're using,
Yeah.
but if it's got live cultures in it, they're feeding probably off of the sugars and whatever is the base of
Mm.
that yogurt.
I need to check that out. I might need to do some correcting on my morning routine. What when people hear the microbiome, what do you think they usually understand or don't understand? Importantly,
Well, first, I'm going to have to say that my whole team, when they watch this, is going to not like me because they're like, "Oh, you get too nerdy about it," and then
granular about it. Yes.
people like switch off the switch, and it's true.
Yeah.
But um, I think it's so interesting to me because people are very accustomed to talking about and even understanding how important the microbiome of the gut
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
Like people get that. They understand it. They buy into it. They take a probiotic. They eat yogurt. They feel better. They have a better bowel movement. They get it. I think when it comes to the surface of the skin, people are maybe still a little apprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is primarily because, and it's a very American thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that the American culture is a very overly hygienic culture, right? Because
Right.
we've been sold the importance of cleanliness
Mm-hmm.
and soap,
Mm-hmm. That goes back to
so
the
well,
20s, right?
all the way back,
Yep.
all the way back.
Yeah.
And so it's ingrained in how we think about skin in terms of clean, and then people think about bacteria as being unclean.
Yes.
Um,
Yes,
and I
totally.
think we're just in a process of educating people and making them understand that these microbes, just like in your internal system, the microbes on the surface of your skin are vitally important to your health.
Yeah.
So it's a process, just like everything.
Yeah. I need to do an episode on that whole concept. I think it was all about, I forgot who. Is it Ivory? Ivory soap back in the
Probably.
20s. They invented
Uh-huh.
this something like the last thing you should be using on your face is Ivory soap,
Yeah.
especially in the 20s. Imagine
Right.
like decades and decades stripping their skin. But you're
Right.
right. It's such a good point that traditionally, for some reason, it's been ingrained in us that bacteria is bad.
Right.
Yeah, and we
And,
coexist with bacteria.
well, and they're so important. And if you look at there's a whole idea of health. It's called the hygiene. Some people have hygiene theory. Some people have the germ theory. But the reason that our population, particularly our children, are more prone to allergies than ever before is because we are not allowing them to be exposed to enough microorganisms that are part of nature. And so their body doesn't understand how to appropriately respond and incorporate them into our systems. And I mean, if you look at, the rates of childhood allergies and even some other diseases over the last 50 years, they have increased dramatically,
Yeah.
particularly allergies, asthma, things like that, inflammatory things. And it very well could be because we have been overly hygienic and not letting our bodies work with the natural environment the way we should.
Yeah. I was reading an article probably in the New York Times, I don't know, that's usually it. Several months ago about the decline in peanut allergies, and they don't understand really why that's happening. But it's real. That's fascinating, right? Like that's like one of the most severe allergies, and the fact that it's declining, that's like, like
Well, you know what?
what's
That's
happening?
interesting. I didn't read that article, but that is really interesting because it very well could. I don't know if the article proposed this or not, but very well could be uh, a response to changing the way people think about what they're cleansing the mom or the baby with. Because there were some theories several years ago that the reason, in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, that we saw this incredible rise in peanut allergies, like out of nowhere,
Yeah, completely.
was related to baby wipes. And
Wow.
And I'm wondering, now that you say that, I wonder if this renewed focus on like quote unquote clean beauty, or, less chemical based beauty, I don't know what you would call it, but if that is having an impact
Yeah.
on peanut allergy. That's interesting. I'll
Yeah,
have
it's
to
really
investigate that
fascinating.
further.
I have to
Yeah.
follow up on that because I don't know where that went. It was several months ago.
Mm.
Um, I want to talk about products. One of the biggest shifts happening right now is, and over the last several years, really from the late teens, that consumers are beginning to question whether luxury skincare actually delivers proportionally better results. You made a
Hmm.
really interesting point in our conversation, our discovery conversation, that psychologically paying more can make us feel better, but clinically that's often a different conversation. How
Hmm.
should consumers think about the cost of a product in relation to its efficacy?
Well, for sure, um, efficacy and cost are not directly correlated.
Mm,
Now, there are, of course, some more expensive products that have a higher percentage of actives or have a newer active, that might justify some incremental increase in cost,
hmm
um, but not an exorbitant, you know, multiple times increase in cost.
yeah,
Um, and also sometimes more inexpensive products may not have the feel that you want, like the feel on your skin,
mm,
the drag on your skin, the
hmm
amount of moisture that it holds in, or the heaviness or lightness on your skin also may not be as good, may not feel as good as one of the luxury products. Um, but that doesn't mean that that product is going to work better on its own. Now, the caveat to that is that if you like the feel or the fragrance or the heaviness of the luxury product, and therefore you are going to use that product more consistently,
yeah,
then there is a reason to pay more, because you're not going to get any benefit out of any product if you're not using it on a consistent basis.
absolutely.
Um, but no, I think that if you're comparing a $10 product and a $300 product,
hmm
no, you're not going to get that much difference in the efficacy between those products.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to what you're expecting your product to do.
Yes, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, like, and we struggle with this all the time when we think about how much we're going to invest in R&D, right?
hmm
Because obviously from a scientist standpoint, I want to always think about, oh, what's the new thing and how can we
For
figure
sure.
this out or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then, but ultimately, at the end of the day, any of these amazing, really cool um, things that people are investigating and studying, like on the bench level, um, by the time they get on your skin, the amount of perceived perceived difference that they're going to make um, is pretty small.
Yeah.
And so um, and so you really have to weigh out, okay, how much am I able to spend to push the science forward versus what is the payout going to be for the user. And so that's what people have to decide as a company what they're going to do.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a tension, an internal tension there in you, in the brand. How does a brand like Beekman, like, I don't think of Beekman at all as gimmicky or embracing, the latest trends. Like, how do you innovate without, launching PDRN tomorrow? Like,
Uh, yeah.
that's like the
Well,
craze right now, or making a
yes.
product pink with using
Right.
vitamin B12. That makes it
Right.
like,
Right.
what? Like, this is a magical ingredient all of a sudden? You're just using it to make
Right.
the product pink.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe to our benefit is that, we are very consistent, primarily because we are not a trend driven company.
Yeah.
We are, and we have very kind of strict guardrails. Like, we are a goat milk based company. That is our hero ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are always investigating, and thankfully there's a lot to investigate with milk. And so we kind of have guardrails. So we're never going to be that company that just jumps on what is the next thing. So yeah, we're just a different type of company when it comes to that way. So that being said, when we understand that there is some nutrient or peptide or amino acid profile in the goat milk, even exosomes, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah, for sure.
That's where we're going to choose to put our research dollars rather than just trying to create another product using whatever is the other trending ingredient.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the exosomes, the rexosomes, right? They're extracted, I think they're in here. They're extracted from goat milk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I want to be very clear. Like everything, we just kind of follow the science. We're not following a trend, and it just so happens that I am just always reading. Like
Like all
if
good
I
scientists, yeah.
right, if I had the chance, I would just sit here at my desk and in my kitchen, and I would just read the medical journals. And I read everything, so I don't just read things about skin. I read about everything. And I would say it was probably 5 years ago. I was reading this really small journal, and I was doing oncology studies. And there was a group of scientists in, I think it was Italy, and they were looking at novel ways that they could administer chemotherapy so it could be more targeted and attack tumor cells and have less of an impact on healthy cells surrounding the tumor. So how could it be more focused on delivering the chemotherapy directly into the tumor, or directly to the tumor? And so they were talking about exosomes. Now this was 5 or 6 years ago. I had never heard the word exosome before. And so I was just reading this article, and I'm like, wow, this is so fascinating. Like, to be able to administer chemotherapy so specifically and in using these things called exosomes. And then, like, kind of as I read through their methodology, well, how were they getting the exosomes and how were they doing it? And it just happened to be that the most readily available source of exosomes that they could find were in goat milk.
Oh my God.
And so then that was just like, okay, I've really got to start looking at goat milk exosomes.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started working with, our goat milk exosomes. And, it's those things like, I mean, just think about that, Carmine. Like, what are the odds that someone who, first, worked and studied in the gerosciences, longevity and aging, then just happened to fall into a goat farm, and then just started making first goat milk soap, and then learning about the microbiome, and now there are exosomes in the goat milk. Like, what are the odds that interest in longevity and how the body ages would then come all the way 20 years later to exosomes derived from the goat milk? It's just a fascinating series of it's happenstance,
Yeah, absolutely. Serendipity. Yeah.
Serendipity. That's what I was searching for.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, that was my point at the outset about your journey. What are the odds that you'd go on to win the Amazing Race? Like,
well, truth. I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked on the Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Because that was in 2013, a long time ago.
Yeah.
But without the Amazing Race, that basically helped us pay off the mortgage on our farm and really start Beekman 1802. So we are forever grateful to the Amazing Race.
Oh my God. Well, there's more happenstance for you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. You've lived in medicine, media, beauty. The worlds of medicine and beauty are increasingly borrowing language from each other. Where do you think that overlap has been genuinely helpful? And where do you think the lines have become blurred in ways that concern you as a doctor?
Ooh. Well, I think the positive to it,
Hmm.
and yes, I think beauty wellness is coming to encompass everything. Like as we talked about earlier, lifestyle, right? It's wellness is encompassing everything because one, people can't afford healthcare, so they're trying to take things into their own hands, right? They're
Mm.
trying to stay as healthy as possible, and then also because um, our particularly in younger generations, the our perception of starting life in terms of like, oh, we're buying a house, we're starting a family is getting later and later, right? We're not doing it in our 20s anymore. We're doing it in our 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And so people have this sense that they have not accomplished or they have not lived their life. So now longevity is also becoming even more important because they're like, I have to live longer in order to get all the things I'm supposed to get done, you know?
Yeah.
And so wellness is coming to encompass everything. Um, the good thing about that is that, and I say this as a physician, any passion or any subject matter, any product that can make people want to learn more about how their body works, um, I think is fantastic. Like, I want people to know more about their body and how it works. Um, I think the pitfall is that a lot of it then goes into marketing speak, which in and of itself is not bad.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think that a lot of science integrating into marketing speak is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's going to be necessarily deleterious to people's health in a grand way, but it's going to certainly separate them from their money.
Right.
Right? They're going to buy into something that they think is going to be beneficial that's not, and they could have spent that money on something that could actually be beneficial.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the biggest threat. But I think overall, um, it's great to talk about science and get people more comfortable about hearing science, hearing scientific words, understanding science, understanding how these things impact their health. It's a good thing.
Yeah. How do you, how do you feel about people injecting peptides? Like like
Um,
that's
Listen,
like the most glaring example of this, right? Like taking science into
yes,
your own hands. Like, mm,
right. Well, I mean, people have been doing it forever, right? I mean, people have been doing things like this all the time, like from taking, injecting steroids and hormones,
true. Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
peptides is just a new iteration of that, or taking any type of supplement. I mean, people have been doing this for a long time. Peptides is just the newest thing. Listen, I think peptidomics is going to be very important, right?
Mm,
I mean, even if you just look at GLPs, right?
hmm.
And it's so funny because people are so familiar with GLP right now. But if you went out in the street and asked someone, even if you ask someone who's taking a GLP,
Hmm.
are you taking peptides? They would say no.
Right.
GLPs are peptides.
Yeah.
So,
That's great. Breaking
um,
news here.
right. You have been injecting them.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
I, I think, and peptides are very powerful things. The right peptide targeting the right need are very powerful things.
Hmm.
As you pointed out, the issue now are that people are buying these black market peptides or gray market peptides. I don't know how you want to classify them,
Yeah.
and injecting them. You don't know what you're injecting, but also, people have done that with supplements for 100 years, right?
Yeah.
You see a supplement, it says it's going to do something, and you just take it. You,
Hmm.
you don't know what's in it, really.
Hmm.
So I think it's how people approach health.
Yeah.
So I think it's people are going to do it. Um, yeah, hopefully, you're not going to get a contaminated batch, or it's going to be someone's going to offer you a product, and you're like, the deal is so good, I can't believe how cheap it is, and then you find out why it's so cheap.
Right. Or you never find out. Or
Right.
I take a lot of supplements. I'm a huge
Hmm.
believer in supplements. And
Hmm.
I do wonder from time to time, I'll be reminded like I don't even know what the quality of this supplement is.
Yeah.
I'm taking Butterbur. I have a lot of
Mhm.
supplements that help mitigate my migraine attack.
Mhm. Mhm.
And cortisol manager, and things that are more advanced than just your vitamin C, which I
Yeah.
take. And I take
Yeah.
niacinamide,
Mhm.
and I try to get them from reputable companies. But
Yeah.
they studies come out all the time where they test supplements and find that all of these supplements at GNC were like, this wasn't real, or it was only 20% concentration, not 100. It's just, to your
Yeah.
point, we've been taking supplements and things like this forever, and we can never really be 100% sure that it's the quality you're expecting it to be.
Absolutely. And there are two things there. One is it being labeled as something and that something is not actually in it. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And then
Yeah.
even if you have the thing that it says it is in the product that you're ingesting or injecting or whatever,
Yeah.
um, does that actually do the thing it's supposed to do? Because there aren't a lot of big studies on these things. So
Yeah.
who knows? Um, but again, I think going back to skincare and health, as long as things aren't doing harm,
Hmm.
there is a health benefit to the ritual, and
Yeah.
there is a health benefit to feeling empowered that you are doing something for your health. Um, so I think there is good to come from that as well.
Yeah, I agree. um Brent, let's move on to the lightning round.
Oh wow, already? Okay,
Oh, isn't that crazy? We've been
I
talking for
know.
50 minutes. Like, what?
Wow.
Time flies. Um, Something you believed early in your career that you no longer believe.
Ooh, this is not lightning. Um, I'll go back to something we just said that that expensive is better,
Mm,
and I think that applies to so many things in life. It applies to clothes that you're buying. It applies to skincare. It applies to so many different things. I have been as gullible and as prone to being persuaded by great marketing as anybody else.
right here.
Um,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
but so I would say that I think that's I have learned that.
Yeah. Um, a skincare ingredient that's underrated.
Oh, goat milk.
Yes.
For sure. And I think, and I say that uh, not to brag, but the thing about goat milk is that one, we talk about the pH and cleansing, of course, but those oligosaccharides and how they are prebiotic, that in and of itself is fascinating.
Hmm.
The exosomes, that's fascinating. Like the whole future of our company could be built on matching these exosomes with particular ingredients or actives.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. But even if you look back, like if you look even today, Carmine, if you look on the back of almost any moisturizer, and actually most skincare products, you'll see some sort of caprylic acid in it, right? You'll
Yep.
see,
Yeah.
you know, and that prefix, and there are several different ones. Um, that prefix capra
Hmm.
is the Latin for, do you know what?
Coconut.
Goat. Goat.
Goat? No, stop it.
Capra is the
Oh my
Latin
God.
prefix for goat because these fatty acids, which we know are so important for the barrier, right?
Hmm.
They were first studied in goat milk. And now, when you see caprylic acid and things like that on the back of a product, now that's just their name. They're being extracted from coconut and some other
Right.
things.
Right.
But goat milk is just really rich in these fatty acids. So when you think about goat milk and all the things it can do, and we talk about at Beekman like the entire ecosystem of the skin and how we're one of the few companies with our hero ingredient that can target the whole ecosystem from you know nourishing the microbiome to getting exosomes into the skin. Um, that's kind of amazing. Um, and so anyway, yeah, goat milk is my answer to that.
And we have a little bit of a Latin lesson. I
Yeah.
studied Latin for 6 years, and I don't remember ever coming across the word goat, oddly. It was
Well,
all about
Capricorn.
texts about war. You know,
Yeah,
those.
do you study astrology? Capricorn
Oh,
is the
that's
goat.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Capricorn is the goat. Perfect
yeah,
link.
yeah.
Amazing. My Latin teacher would call that a bugaboo. Anything that would get us to remember something. That's perfect. Your favorite place to completely unplug?
Oh, this is so easy. Any
Mm.
place where there are giant trees.
Mm.
Like you show me a giant tree. Like I am a tree hugger. Like I can sit in a forest of giant trees. It doesn't have to be a forest. It could just be one giant tree. And
Hmm.
I just feel so grounded. And I think one of the saddest things for me in life is when like I see a storm come through and a big tree comes down or even a big branch. I'm like, do you know how many hundreds of years that has been growing and now it's gone?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that just, it just, it hurts my soul.
Yeah. Um, what's one word that defines healthy skin?
Nourished,
Oh, great. Awesome.
nourished.
Awesome. Awesome. Last question. What's bringing you joy these days?
Um, Seeing other people, um, feeling, feeling joy. Like I
Mm.
love to see people in a moment of joy.
Hmm.
And, I think it's rare these days. There's so much stress and so much strife. And so if you see someone who's just in an uncontrollable moment of laughter or something like that, just pay attention to it and honor it. And it just makes me feel so joyful.
That's beautiful and a beautiful place for us to end. Thank you, Brent. This is incredible.
Thanks, Carmine. Hope you stay healthy.
I promise I will. All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Skin Karma Pod. Find more insights, real talk, and reviews of my favorite skincare products on the Skin Karma blog at skinkarma.com. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Substack, please rate and review this episode. It helps me to reach more listeners. Ciao.